back to Sons of the Star. I'm your host, Dallas. Joining me again this week, Cowboy Regg. We're your favorite father and son Cowboys fans duo. Cowboy Regg, I wish we had something to talk about this week, but there's just no good news out there.
Well, there's lots of news out there. Whether it's good or bad, we'll find out real soon. But hey, we're all in. We got it. We wanted it. We got it. Now we got some drama. We're all in. Let's go.
Yeah, of course, if you've been paying attention, which if you're listening to these podcasts, I'm sure you are a dedicated Cowboys fan and you've seen the news, Dan Quinn is going to the Washington Commanders. So, Cowboy Reg, you are our famous person on X, formerly known as Twitter. You are running X. I recently saw you're verified, so congratulations. Everyone give Cowboy Reg a follow. Hit that little banner below. But Cowboy Reg had a poll out as of this morning when we got the news asking Cowboys fans across X, who would you like to see as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? The options were Joe Witt Jr., Al Harris, Ron Rivera, and Mike Vrabel. Currently, Mike Vrabel is in the lead at 52.9%, Ron Rivera in second at 29.4%, and then Al Harris and Joe Witt Jr. just getting a couple of votes. So, Cowboy Reg, how are you feeling about Dan Quinn leaving for the Commanders? Let's just talk about that first before we get into his replacement. Initial thoughts, Cowboy Reg.
Yeah, I'm surprised it went down the way it did. I had him going to Seattle all along, but the end result is the same for me. I knew he was gone, and he's gone. It was either him or McCarthy from the start. McCarthy got that vote of confidence, kind of a backdoor vote, but he got it, and then it had to be Dan Quinn. He was a fall guy, so he had to go. Unfortunately for Dan Quinn, I think that was his only option. I don't think he was offered the other jobs that he hoped to get. I think Seattle went another direction, and I'm surprised. But so he was forced with either coming back in a lame duck situation where everybody continues to blame him for what happened, and he loses a lot of respect in the fan base. He loses respect with ownership, and possibly the players. So he had to go, and I wore the hat in honor of Dan. I've been a big
Yeah,
fan since day
backwards
one.
hats.
Hate to hate to see him go, but after that playoff performance, Dan, you had to go. Good luck to you.
Yeah, let's do a cheers to Dan Quinn.
And we're moving on. And then we're
It's time
moving
to move
on. The
on.
hat goes on. We got a new coach coming with a forward hat on. Cheers.
Yeah, I think Ron Rivera wears his hat forward. Okay, but we're not
We'll
going to talk
talk
about
about
that
that.
yet. Yeah, interesting move. So I was obviously we had two openings left, right? We had the Seahawks and Commanders. That was after last podcast. We've been waiting all week for this news. We said we'd do an emergency podcast and we got some more news. And luckily, this is the day of our normal recording. So it happened this morning. But I was a little surprised. I thought once the Seahawks went with McDonald that I truly thought that Dan Quinn was coming back at the end of this year. I really wonder, and we'll never really know, but did he really want that Commander's job, or was there pressure from the Cowboys organization that he needed to kind of get out of town? And like you said, that's the last job left. I thought it was an interesting move. I would have never guessed he was going there, but he got a few interviews with them, and who knows how that'll work out. I thought Seattle would have been the better pick for him, and he had some ties there, but he's going to stay in the NFC East. I think at the end of the day, Dan Quinn was. It sounds like either he's getting pressure from the Cowboys organization to leave, or he valued taking a head coaching job over anything else and staying. So I guess it's one of those situations where if there's an opening, you better take it because who knows what's going to happen down the road. So he's gone. Um, Interesting move, like I said. I wonder also if the Ravens win that game next week, and Mike McDonald continues to be the Ravens defensive coordinator going forward. Their season's not over. They have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. You know, just Seattle likely doesn't hire him, right? You're not going to hire a defensive coordinator that's going to the Super Bowl. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope not. You would hope that
Right.
that coach would not be conducting interviews or talking business the week or two that his team's in the Super Bowl. You would hope not.
Yeah, so like we talked about a few podcasts ago, like everything's like cascading. It's like a big avalanche. This coaching carousel. Every move is determined based off another team's move. So this is how the cookie crumbles. At the end of the day, Dan Quinn's staying in the division, and he's heading to the Commanders. Interesting. I don't think if you were to take betting odds of that at the beginning of this
Yeah,
season, I mean, talk about how quickly things can change in the NFL. So
yeah,
let's talk initial thoughts on is obviously we all agree changes need to come for this Cowboys organization. You can't go out there and roll the exact same thing out next year. As much as we want to be all in, I don't think we would have been okay with, as a Cowboys fan base, rolling out the same exact coaching staff for next year after that debacle in the Super Wild Card round this year. So is this obviously, I think we're all in agreement that this is probably, we don't necessarily know if it's a good move yet for the Cowboys, but it's a move that kind of needed to happen and we expected to happen. But is it bad news for Dan Quinn going to another team in the NFC East, Cowboy Reg, or do you think this is good for the Cowboys? Who kind of wins this hire?
yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's a winner or a loser in this case. It was a necessity for both parties. Dan Quinn had to know he was the guy that they were going to look at once they retain McCarthy. They have to sell it to the players. And you had Micah Parsons yesterday in his podcast saying that it's not his decision where he lines up. That's a coach's call. Now,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think that Parsons meant any ill will towards Dan Quinn, but I will say that the organization as a whole heard that, and it's just kind of a coincidence that he's gone this morning after that podcast yesterday, and the way that could have been interpreted. But um, if he was losing players, I'm not going to base it off that. But if he was losing the faith of the players, and he's already lost faith of the fan base, he had to take the job that was offered, and he keeps his head up high and he goes into a new venture. And I wish him well. Just not these 2 games a year with us. I don't
Right.
wish you well there. And I'm not afraid of him being the NFC East at all. I don't know, without a lot of talent around him, I don't know if he's able to overcome that with his coaching skills. I think he's got leadership qualities and he could be a head coach, and he's went to the Super Bowl. He's proved it, but there might be a little something missing, and I don't know if he can overcome the lack of talent in Washington.
Yeah, I think Dan Quinn's defensive coordinator, him as a defensive coordinator, has overstayed his welcome in Dallas. He has one big issue, and that's winning big games and having the defense perform in big games. And the Cowboys as an organization have one similar issue of winning big games and showing up to big games. And when you have that, when you have the same problem there, you know, it's kind of, that's going to turn on you. And unfortunately, that was Dan Quinn. And I think if you look at things overall this year, and you look at the Cowboys' losses, but more specifically, you're really looking at one game, and you're looking at that Packers loss, and you're saying what went wrong. Well, the defense got embarrassed in that game, and that someone has to be held accountable, and that's Dan Quinn, like we talked about. So I echo what you say. I don't wish any ill will towards him. I agree with you. I don't think Dan Quinn can go into that Washington team and make any major changes right away. They're obviously still rebuilding. I think they're going to be in the process of rebuilding for a good while. I know they kind of plan on drafting. Are they going to stick with Sam Howell? Or are they going to draft a new quarterback? But that organization as a whole has been kind of torn down, and they're building back up. And like I said, I take jabs at the Commanders, but I don't think you can really disagree with that statement. Like, you're moving on, from the issues that you've had in your organization. You're trying to rebuild with a new GM, new owner, new head coach now. Like, we'll see. So I'm not going to say good luck to Dan Quinn, because I hope every team in the NFC East goes Owen. But you know, I don't dislike him as a guy.
That's you're a math guy. That's impossible since they play each other twice a year. But Go on with
Sorry,
your point.
0-1 as in the other games, I hope they tie, but no wins. Like, you could still
Oh,
go
that's okay.
yeah, you could
Okay.
still go
No,
without
you're
wins,
right.
so,
Yeah,
watch it.
you can still
Watch
have
it
a
there.
0. Yeah.
I am a big
Yeah, you
math
got
guy,
me.
big numbers guy.
There it is. And that's why you get the big bucks right there.
I just thought of that on my feet, so, anyway, I really don't wish him that much luck. He's chosen to go in the same division, and he's kind of an enemy now. So hey, he had some good years with us, but I tend to think we win this because this is a guy that we wanted out, and we are blaming for a majority of that loss, and he's going somewhere else. They're promoting him from a DC to a head
Right.
coaching position. And I think that's what we need to take from this. Hey, only time will tell. I might have to eat my words down the road, but um, yeah, Dan Quinn, see ya, buddy. It's been real. It's been fun, but it really hasn't been that fun. It ain't been real fun. You didn't show up when you needed to, and that's why we want you gone. And and that's really all I have to say about that. So let's talk about his replacement. So back to our poll. Right now, our poll on X has Vrabel in the lead and Ron Rivera in second. Um, Al Harris is not going to the Packers. At least we know that. We don't know if he's going to go with Quinn. I don't think he's going with Quinn. The Packers have chosen to hire the former head coach of Boston College as their defense coordinator, which is a very interesting move. Um, but I think overall, right now, Ron Rivera, Mike Vrabel are the favorites. They are both scheduled to interview with the Cowboys. That's what I've seen today um, from sources on the internet. So take that for what it is. But I think that's probably very true.
I'm his source. I'm his source. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding. I'm not his source. I don't know
you
about.
are.
I'm in. I'm intrigued by this Vrabel rumor. I have not heard that, and I hope that's true because I've been calling that. You can go back 3 episodes of this podcast, and I was calling for Mike Vrabel. So if that's true, I'm all in, as the kids are saying. You
Uh,
looking it up?
yeah.
It's
So
okay.
I saw it on X earlier. I don't see
Yeah,
any
yeah.
like real news articles on
I
it.
mean, that would be the two guys that I'm interviewing those two guys first, and then I'll talk to Joe Witt Jr. and Al Harris. And the one thing that I could tell you that you may not have heard, but it's being widely talked about on X as well, is that Dan Quinn wants Joe Witt Jr. to
Yeah,
be his defensive coordinator. So if he wants him to be the defensive coordinator, now we have to really get serious. We have to get serious quick because if he is in the running, and I don't pick him first, but if he's in the running and he's one of your top two guys, you can't let him go with Dan Quinn without talking to him first and
yeah,
offering him the job if you want him. If you want him,
hundred
I
percent.
yeah. So Dan Quinn might be as slow as this is taken. He might be helping us make a faster decision now in the short term.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, who, and it really depends on who the Cowboys hire. But is Dan Quinn going to move? Usually these
Off the
coordinators,
top,
hey, crack them if you got them. Shout
hmm?
out to our boys, our Canadian friends, Cowboys can
Yeah,
fan.
they do. They do a great job. It's a great podcast.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
if you're not following Cowboys can fan, you definitely should. If you like our podcast, you'll love theirs. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see.
And if you hate ours, you'll like theirs. If you like ours,
Exactly.
you'll love it.
But I think we're all the
So either
same.
way, it's a win-win for you guys.
Yeah, we're drinking fans with the Cowboys problem. So I mean they kind of go hand in hand anyway. Anyway, um, what was I going to say? It's Cowboy Regg. You took me off topic. Yeah,
Yeah, we got yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what like usually when coaching changes happen, some kind of some guys go with other guys, some guys stay. We really don't know that yet, and this news is brand new as of today. But I think Joe Wood Jr. is the most likely guy to go. I really do think he will go with Dan Quinn. So that might be good for us because I think that gives Al Harris the chance to promote to more of a assistant defensive coordinator position,
Right.
as long
Yeah.
as whoever we hire next doesn't plan on moving someone in. But I really hope that, we're a big Al Harris fans on this podcast. So we're going to hope that, maybe Joe Witt Jr. leaves and Al Harris is promoted to that assistant defensive coordinator position.
Yeah.
And like I said
Well, and
earlier,
here,
go ahead. I was just going to say he
here,
was
yeah,
he wasn't hired by the Packers, so I think as of now he's staying. So go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. That's good news, and it keeps more options on the table. But the thing about coaches come in, a defensive coordinator comes in, and he wants to bring quote his guys. Well, the two guys that we're looking at, Mike Vrabel and Ron Rivera, were fired, and you can't sell it to our organization that you get to bring a coordinator with you when you guys just got fired. So we, we got a breakdown there. The cat jumped on the screen. There, we're back. So I mean, I don't see them bringing their own guys in. So I see an opportunity for an Al Harris to
Right.
work with the new coordinator, get promoted to the assistant coordinator, so he's next in line. It's perfect. It's perfect. So I like your theory there that it's okay if Joe Witt Jr. goes with Dan Quinn. Let him go. Let him go. Your new guy can handle the he could take over the wheel, and then Al Harris gets a shot at a promotion, and everybody's happy. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you why also it's good is because Joe Wood Jr. is the passing game coordinator as well as the assistant defensive coordinator, and Al Harris is obviously the defensive backs coach. I think that area of the Cowboys defense is pretty well covered. That's not where the complaint has been most of the year. Obviously, we could talk about all day how that game was called in the super wild card round, but I think overall our passing defense has been great. We don't want to see changes. So if Al Harris is left in charge of the passing game, assistant defensive coordinator role, I think we're in a good spot. Where we do need improvement is the run game. So if we get a new defensive coordinator that brings in maybe a new linebackers coach, um, and they focus more, they say, "Hey, Al, you've been doing a great job with the passing game. We're going to let you keep doing what you're doing. We're going to focus on, you know, run stopping schemes. That's going to be our number one priority." If we get someone
Yeah.
like that in, that's something we struggled with in big games and in games all year. If we get a new face in there, um, different look at our run defense, I think that would be a positive thing. So real quickly, David Moore from Dallas Morning News, Talk Cowboys 1310, the ticket radio station in the DFW area. He's the one that reported that Mike Vrabel will be interviewing with the Dallas Cowboys, and he is the favorite to get the position if the interview goes well. So pretty
Ah,
decent,
they listen.
decent
They
source
listen
there.
to me. I've been calling it. I love it. I that it sounds credible. Let's put our trust in that for now until we're proven otherwise. But man, that would be huge. That'd be huge. That'd make a splash. Now we're going all in. You get a guy like that in there, we're going all in. We're getting a head coach. We're getting a Super Bowl linebacker as a player. We're getting a Super Bowl experienced coach. He's in New England. She's active tonight. Sorry. And I love it. Vrabel all the way. I hope that's true. I hope it happens.
Yeah, I Vrabel is kind of the most likable candidate. I think right now the Cowboys fans are split between, and I think we echo this sentiment that Ron Rivera and Mike Vrabel are the two favorites right now, and those are the two that have been tied to actually interviewing. Vrabel is more likable right now because he's a younger guy. He's seen more recent success with his team, um, and a lot of the issues being thrown out there about Ron Rivera is like, hey, he's not willing to change. Like we talked about in many podcasts before, we're worried about, we need a defensive coordinator that's going to come in and be able to stop the modern offense, and especially the high-powered offenses in the
Yeah.
NFC. We need a guy that can take down Green Bay. We need a guy that can beat San Francisco, right? So, and need a guy that can contain the Eagles, right? So, who is the
Vrabel.
bet? Who is the better guy? Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera? if you look at the history of the two coaches, you will see that, you know, Vrabel's only been a defensive coordinator one time, and that was with the Houston Texans, and they went 4-12. Not a great showing, but obviously he did something good because he immediately gets picked up by the Titans and has, pretty successful teams in Tennessee. So it's interesting. You look at Ron Rivera. If you look at records, I say Ron Rivera is the guy. And if you just look off of defensive coordinator records, Ron Rivera is the guy. But overall, a lot of people are saying Vrabel. I don't know. I'm really torn right now, I'll be honest. Like I said, I like the idea of Ron Rivera, like I said last week, but the only thing that worries me is his unwillingness to potentially change with the modern offense. We know you're a Mike Vrabel fan. So I'm going to take the side of Ron Rivera. I want you to take the side of Mike Vrabel. Sell me on Mike Vrabel. I'm going to try to sell you on Ron Rivera, and let's try to come to an agreement.
I'm not going to penalize Vrabel for what happened in Houston. I mean, we know the history of that team during that time frame. They weren't winning games with whatever coaches they had in there. But I will say that I like the defense he plays. I like the defense he believes in. I like what he's done in Tennessee. And I think that he makes the splash we're looking for. I think the players, fan base, the other coaches get excited about him in a positive way. Rivera kind of comes in as, yeah, he's got the resume, but does he excite you? Is he going to excite the players? Do they believe in this guy? They just, hey, we're in the same division. We ran over these guys. We swept these guys. Now here's
Right.
their coach. I just think Rivera, I'm not going to be upset if Rivera gets the job. I'm not going to be upset. I know he's going to be reliable. I know he's going to do the job that he needs to do, but I don't know if he can go over the top. I think Vrabel could get these guys over the top. I think he brings that excitement to it. So I think it's a more positive hire, but either one of those guys I'm taking right now. I'm taking either one of those guys right now. And then I'm promoting Al Harris, letting Joe Witt Jr. go with Dan Quinn, and we got the change we wanted, but we're keeping guys in house, Al Harris, to work with the new guy. This is the way we've done things. You know, we can kind of bounce things off each other a little bit, and all of a sudden Vrabel gets them guys hyped to play again, and our defense is what it should be. And Vrabel can help us in the linebacker. The guy's the linebacker in the NFL. He's
Yeah.
not. He's a young guy. Wasn't that long ago, and
Right.
he can help our linebacker. Our linebacker core is. We need help, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of our weaknesses and our inability to stop the run. A lot of it's right there in the linebacker. So who's going to help him? Mike Vrabel. There it is. That's the hire I want to make.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stick to the script here, just like the NFL. Um,
That's right.
that that was pretty good. So Ron Rivera, the reason I like Ron Rivera is his resume in I don't he had success in Carolina, not so much in Washington. Again, I don't blame him as much for the Washington disaster because I think that's just a really tough position. And you look at what he was given, and he didn't really have much to work with. I think you look at okay, so he had success, I guess you can call it, in 2020 when they went 7-9 and won the NFC East. But the one thing they did have is a top 5 defense in the NFL that year when it comes to points allowed, yards allowed. That was just 3 years ago. But you look at the recent success; it has not been great as a head coach for Ron Rivera. You look at him as strictly a defensive coordinator. Well, then you're looking at him uh, in the earlier 2000s, Chicago Bears going to the Super Bowl. I talked about on last podcast in 2010 when he had the best defense in the NFL in all statistics with the San Diego Chargers
Yeah.
before he takes the Carolina job. Obviously, he gets the Carolina job, takes him to the Super Bowl and loses, but he did have Cam Newton. So what are you going to do? But that defense was pretty legit. I think we could all agree. And he lost to Peyton Manning. I mean, Peyton Manning against the Carolina Panthers. I mean, what are you going to do? But I think if you look at the resume of defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator success, you take Ron Rivera. Like you said, I don't think you could go wrong with either. But I think with Ron, I really think as an older guy, this is kind of his last. This could be his last grab where he's never, he hasn't won that Super Bowl yet. I think he can go all in with this team. He can bring great experience. Um, like I said, kind of a tough old school mentality to this team, which I think they could really use. I think that's what they need is a level of toughness. At the same time, I don't know if he's going to be able to relate to the players as much. Whereas Vrabel's a younger guy, he's the same kind of way. He seems hard nosed. He seems, to bring kind of that some of that old school mentality to his team as well. I don't know. I don't know right now, honestly. Like you said, I don't think I'll be upset with either. The only kicker is who, if these guys come in, how many people are they going to bring? You make a great point about Vrabel's experience with being a linebacker, um, recent linebacker, and having that success, being a good linebacker coach. But I don't think you can go wrong with either one. You're taking less responsibility going from head coach to defensive coordinator. Both these guys have had success in the NFL. They're both, you know, bring that attitude that we want, much like Dan Quinn, a good intensity, hard nosed football. Just hopefully they can have more success at the Cowboys than Dan Quinn did. We will see. We will see at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's one more point I'm not seeing people make, but I thought of this. We're all in next year. Mike McCarthy's in his last year of his contract. Rivera or Vrabel will be head coach the following year. They're either going to be coaching the Cowboys because McCarthy failed, or
Hmm.
if McCarthy does well, who's going to get a head coaching job? Our defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
Because if we get to the NFC Championship next year or beyond, McCarthy gets extended, and Vrabel or Rivera will be a head coach in one of the other jobs that open up next year. So this job is a hot job to take for a veteran coach because you're only going to be there 1 year. So hey, Bill Belichick, you're telling me there's a chance.
yeah. Let's just touch on Belichick real quick before we move on to his replacements because I feel like we have to talk about it. What is 0 to 100%? What's the percentage Bill Belichick's coming to the Cowboys?
2 days ago it was zero, and now it's one because of Jerry's comments about that he could work with Bill Belichick. I think Jerry knows. He knew days ago. We knew weeks ago Quinn was gone. Jerry was putting the feelers out there. Would Belichick be interested in coming and running our defense? I think the answer to that is 99% no.
Yeah,
Why would he? He has the most Super Bowls of any coach in the history of the game. You're telling me he's going to go backwards and be a coordinator? I mean, he'd just take a year off and be a head coach next year. He doesn't have to coach. But Vrabel and Rivera coming fresh
they need it.
of off their firing, and they don't have the resume that Belichick does, so they need to take this job. I think those guys are going to end up both wanting the job, and it sounds to me like our sources over in Dallas radio, our guys are saying Vrabel's the first choice of the Cowboys. So I'm feeling good. I think it's going to happen now. That would excite me.
Yeah, like I said, I initially I was leaning more towards Rivera, and that's probably because I didn't think there was a great chance we'd get Vrabel because those head coaching positions still were open. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really expect Seattle to go out and grab McDonald the way they did. And obviously, from last podcast, I thought the Ravens were going to win the whole Super Bowl, so I didn't think he was going anywhere. But things changed so quickly. Now that if you give them both an even shot, you know, I'm with you. You've convinced me, Cowboy Regg. I am more willing to go with Vrabel because he's a younger guy. Um, he's seen more recent success, and potentially he could bring a guy like Derrick Henry in. I just like
That'll work.
the
Bring him
style
with
of
you.
the style of football that they've had success in Tennessee with the team, like the quarterbacks that he's had. I mean, that's you can't overlook that. And I think if you surround a talented team like the Cowboys, um, obviously he's not the head coach, but if you have him just focus on defense, I think you got a good shot there with Vrabel. And he's still young, and he's still going to be passionate, willing to learn, right? Willing to change.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if Ron's
Yep.
going to be willing to do that. You kind of get what you get with Rivera, and that's kind of been the biggest complaints. Where I think is Vrabel's got a lot of years ahead of him as a coach. He's trying to do the best job as possible. He's not gonna, he's going to be more open-minded when it comes to defense, and maybe he will be better at stopping the modern offense. That's what we've been struggling with. So I could see that. I think either way, right? You're getting a head coach and guys with experience coming as your defense coordinator, so it's a positive. We will see. We'll try to keep you updated as possible. Hopefully next week we have an answer, because with Dan Quinn, at the end of the day, we were just looking for an answer, right? And we got it, and now we can move on and talk about the future. And we needed a little bit of change, and we got it. So I think it's positive. Um, one more coaching note before we move on. As we've all seen, Kellen Moore is the new offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Your thoughts, Cowboy Reg?
I made jokes about it before it happened, is I figured that's never going to happen because that's just too
Yeah.
funny. It's too funny that fan base just ripped Kellen Moore for years and laughed at our inability to win the playoffs, and then they go after the guy, and now he's the savior. He's going to take him over the hump. I don't know how he's going to work with Jalen Hurts, but man, there's a reason why the guy doesn't have a job 2 years in a row. Dallas ran him out of town, and Harbaugh's not going to retain him. Well, you get retained if you're good, man. So you got a guy that's been rejected 2 years in a row, and you turn over your offense to him. So I think it's good news for us. The other thing is, look, yeah, he coached in Dallas. He might know the way we did this offense and how we ran the plays in these situations. That was 2 seasons ago. A lot of things have changed. Mike McCarthy's calling plays now. Kellen Moore's not going to have a leg up on us. We got a new defensive coordinator. Let him go in the division. Let him do his thing. I'm not afraid of his offense at all. It's a curious hire though. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised too. And like I said, we were laughing about on last podcast saying Kellen Moore might go to the Eagles, but we're both like, there's no way they're gonna do that. Like
Yeah,
they're not that, you thought they moved past the we're the ugly cousin, step brother, sister, whatever of the Cowboys. They're not gonna do something like that. And then they go and do it. It's kind of baffling. I really don't understand it. But the
wait
whole kill.
till wait till those wait till Zeke suits up with him next year. Then you're really going to see it.
Oh god. Oh man.
Kellen Moore
Uh
gonna bring Zeke in real quick. Watch.
he might. But for anyone that's kind of worried about playing Kellen Moore again, I will ask you to go watch the Cowboys versus the LA Chargers this year. We've already we it took a few weeks to go and beat Kellen Moore, and that was a completely healthy Chargers team before it all went downhill. Herbert was healthy. We went
Yeah.
out there and we took care of business. So I really I wouldn't stress about that too much. And like you said, Kellen Moore's at a tough point of his career right now. Um, he moves on from the Cowboys. He has he does not have success in LA. The head coach gets fired. So if he did a good job this year, he has. Why did he leave Dallas? Right? He left Dallas because he wants a chance of becoming the head coach, and he didn't see that happening in Dallas. Right? So he goes to LA. His head coach gets fired, and then like you said, they hire someone else and they don't want to retain him. I think that says a lot about where Kellen Moore is at right now. You throw him in a place like Philly where your head coach is on the hot seat already, and they don't really
Second
have
new
it.
set of coordinators, right? Second new set of coordinators in 2 years.
Yeah, Philly's at an interesting point next year. It's going to be a ton of pressure for him playing against. If he goes out and has a bad game week one, they're going to call for his head. It's a lot of They are. I mean, they 100% are.
Oh,
You
and I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that dumpster fire. It's
like
it's comical.
you just hired a former Dallas Cowboys player and a guy that has completely gone
Oh
through
man.
the Cowboys
I
organization.
mean, you probably threw freaking batteries at that guy at one point, right? You
Yeah,
probably spit on
it's
his
insane.
daughter and his little sister, and you probably flipped off his mother. And told your kid to kick the father in the nuts. You're a Philly fan, so you did all that to Kellen Moore, and now you tell me he's the answer. He's the guy. He's a
I can't
former
believe they
Cowboys
did it.
player. I'll show up to Philly wearing a Kellen Moore Cowboys jersey. See how that goes. They probably their heads would explode. Do we beat this guy up? Well, he's wearing a Kellen Moore jersey. So what do we
Yeah,
do? My
yeah.
freaking
It's
head
just
blows up.
it's weird, man. It's very weird. I don't know what's going on in Philly. Obviously, I would say something in the water, but there's been something in the water for a really long time. So let's move on. I'm not afraid of it at all. Like I think it's obvious. I think it's a positive for the Cowboys, but there's a lot of weird things going on with Dan Quinn going to the Commanders, Kellen Moore going to the Eagles, and potentially Ron Rivera coming to the Cowboys. It's I haven't seen this big of a mix-up in one division before, and it for it to be the
That's a
NFC
coaching
East.
carousel.
Yeah.
Coaching carousel right there. And I just that would be wild. But I'm just hoping it doesn't happen because I hope we're going to break that cycle. We're going to go get Mike Vrabel.
All right. Let's do it. We got hopefully next week we'll have some news for sure. So on that same note, with bringing a guy like Vrabel in, you would say this is your move to go all in, right? Because the reason we're talking about Rivera or Vrabel is because Jerry Jones this week said we're going all in, and I think to be all in, you need to bring an experienced coach in. You're not trying anything out. You're not giving someone a chance that's never done it before because you're trying to win next year and you're not focusing on the future. The future is now. We need to win now. So Jerry Jones, uh, quoting Jerry Jones here, I would anticipate with looking ahead at our key contracts that we'd like to address, we will be all in. I would anticipate we will be all in at the end of this year. So when you say, is there any thought, we will push the hell out of it. It will be going all in on different people than you've done in the past. We will be going all in. We've seen some things out of some players that we want to be all in on. Yes, I would say that you will see us this coming year not build for the future. It's the best way I've ever said, and that ought to be an answer to a lot of questions. So, not perfect English there out of Jerry Jones. He's getting up there in age, but he mentioned the word all in, the two words all in, like 7 or 8 times within a paragraph. So, Cowboy Regg, what does it mean to be all in? What is Jerry Jones talking about here?
Well, what we have called for is an all-in situation. An all-in situation is spending the money to get the free agents and stop drafting projects.
Mhm.
Mozzie Smith. You draft a project and say, "Oh, he'll get better. Just suffer through him." We're not doing that anymore. That's what all-in means. I got a theory on what Jerry said, so get your tinfoil hat out as you normally do. Jerry ain't talking about the same all-in. He's talking about paying Micah Parsons and paying CD Lamb and paying Dak Prescott. If you read what he said and if you watch what he said, he was talking about paying contracts to the guys that need those money. I don't think Jerry even knows what we're doing when it comes to being all in. I think he's talking about the money he's going to have to spend to retain the guys we have. And what we're talking about is bring us Derrick Henry or bring us some, a big splash wide receiver or even, a back that can power through the line like Derrick Henry, a linebacker that's out there. That's what we're talking about with the fan base. I'm not sure that's what Jerry's talking about. And I'm afraid that nobody gave Jerry the news what we're talking about. And he's just talking about spending money on the guys we already have. That's running it back.
Right. Yeah, on the free agent note, he said, Jerry Jones, it would be disruptive to not do a free agent as far as what we did last year. I think you could anticipate us having some influence here and being involved in some free agents subject to the right free agent that we can get under the right contract. So, you're correct. You're 100% correct there. It's not like we're going to do everything we can to
Nope.
go out and
He
get the
doesn't even know
guys.
what we're talking about. He doesn't know
Yeah.
what we're talking about. He crazy old grandpa in the corner of the room. Somebody make that man a cookie and hot chocolate. Tell him the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. Keep and it changed the locks on the office for God's sake. Jerry won't know how to get in.
Oh man. it's got to be our first time as fans being there being a huge disconnect between the fan base and the front office, right?
Yeah,
At least
it
for
is.
my lifetime.
We're talking
I
about
think
a
you're right,
different
Cowboy
all in.
Reg.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it, but what does it mean to us and what we hope they're doing is we hope there's some. So what does it mean to be all in? Well, you're trying to win within a very short window as opposed, and I think you have to, like we talked in the last podcast, not a, yeah, you can re-sign these guys, but you have to structure the contracts in a way where they will be with the Cowboys for a long time, getting paid on the back end, and frees up cap space for this free agency. You go get a running back, you go get a defensive tackle, a linebacker, positions we need. You draft for positions we need now, not for projects like you just said, right? We're not looking to replace guys in 3 or 4 years. We're looking to a guy, to use our first round pick for someone that can come in right away and play this year, next year. So that's what we mean by being all in. And the coaching staff has to think it's all in because it's Mike McCarthy's last year of his contract, right? So he's got to make at least the NFC Championship game. At least, even then, he might. If he loses in the NFC Championship game next year, he still might not keep his job, right?
Depending how they lose, if they don't show up and they get blown out, I'll be the first one in line. Don't
Yeah.
I mean
So
you got to battle. If you get in that game, you battle. If you lose a close game, you say, Mike, you know what? Let's give him a couple more years and let's get back there and see what happens. But he's got to do a lot, like you said. And we're not just talking about winning a playoff game. We did that 2 years ago. Retired Tom Brady, but it didn't work out so well this year. We were supposed to take a step further, not a step back. So
right,
winning a playoff game is not good enough. Winning two playoff games is not good enough. You got to get to the NFC Championship on your third playoff game, and you got to compete to win that game. Win the game or lose a game close, and you fought to the end. Then we could talk contract. Anything less than that, then it's Mike Vrabel's job.
100%. So I think we're in agreement here. There sounds like some disconnect right now with what Jerry Jones is saying, and he wants to keep the core. But at least what we can all agree on is we need to keep the core of this team together. And there's some tweaks here and there that we need to make. We have off season to talk about that. I We'll get into more free agency stuff and draft stuff next week when we have the results from the Senior Bowl game. We'll talk about where we need to go for what spots we need to fill with free agents and or draft picks next week. But we're still not sure right now what all in means. We have our definition, and Jerry Jones has his own. So we'll see about that. Um, so let's end the podcast today with what we saw out of the conference championship games last weekend. So I was 0 for
Did
2 on my
you
picks.
are you doing the Twitter questions? We had some Twitter questions roll in.
Oh
Questions
yeah,
from the users.
yeah, good
Come
call,
on
Cowboy
now.
Rich. Good
Now we
call.
can hit that now. We can hit it now, or you can hit it after the my Super Bowl pick that will. Since I went 2-0 last week, you went 0-2. I'll just give you another loss next week.
Yeah,
We know
we're gonna
about
pick the Super Bowl game next week, so don't get your panties
it.
in a
Okay.
wad. But yeah,
Well,
let's good call. Since Cowboy Reg is our ex connoisseur, the guy with all the followers out there. Cowboy Reg is close to 1,000 followers, so make sure you follow him on X. But we did have some Twitter questions roll in. Like we said before, if you hit us up on Twitter for Twitter questions, we will read them on the podcast, give you a shout out. We will talk about it. So our question for tonight: reply with questions for Cowboy Reg and I to discuss on tonight's show. Just very vague. Cowboy Reg specifically said, I know y'all want to talk about the defensive coordinator opening. Fire away. So, well, we had a comment from our good friend Mackenzie King Louis Vuitton the 13th. Why is Jordan Love such a bad man? Um, I don't know. That doesn't have anything to do with our question, but he put it
well,
out there,
hey,
so we got to read it. He
he
got us.
he torched us, Mackenzie, and he's the reason why we're here tonight talking about Dan Quinn's job because your boy Jordan Love put him on notice that You know what? I'm younger than the age of 35, so you might have to adjust your defense. Dan Quinn couldn't. He made your boy look good. Kudos to Jordan Love. Dan Quinn's out the door, so hey, we're ready for a new start. Jordan Love is credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, got to give credit where credit's due. We don't have much room to talk smack, but we'll see. There's gonna be, like we said, there's gonna be more expectations for the Packers this year. Yes, they
You
got
ever
us
heard of
again.
a you ever heard of a sophomore slump, McKenzie? Well, if
Yeah.
you ain't heard of one now, wait till next year when y'all are 7-10 and you go, "Hey, what
Oh.
happened to Jordan Love?"
Oh.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's a sophomore slump. If you don't know about it, ask a Jets fan. He'll let you know.
Oh man. Yeah, they're, like I said, more pressure on the Packers next year, but hey, we have Packers friends that are Packers fans that are friends. So, yeah, just thinking about the Packers,
Yeah,
I've been
they can rub it in. They got us.
having a
They got
stroke.
us good this year. We
Yeah.
got nothing on
So,
them right now. We'll see.
we got another question coming in from our boy Josh, big Steelers fan. Why do you think the Cowboys gave the okay to let the or he said Redskins? Wow, hey, throwback. Interview their coach, since it's a in division hire, meaning, why did the Cowboys let the Washington Commanders go out and get um, Dan Quinn from us to stay in the division?
I mean, the answer is they have to because if you don't allow a coach to interview, you can't fill a position. I mean, if I go to your organization to work on a 4-year defensive coordinator contract and I make your defense number one in the league, and I've got, 5, 6, 7 teams knocking on my door and I can't go to make the money that I think I deserve and the career opportunity to move up. So every organization allows those coordinators to interview during their playoff run or as soon as their season ends. You'll hear even during the playoff run, sometimes you'll hear a little contact was made. They may not start the meetings. They got to respect that that team needs to finish their season, but there's contact made. People feel are putting out feelers from the start, and I think the NFL allows it. I don't think there's a rule against it. And if you did stop somebody, you would get a bad rep, and people wouldn't want to come fill your position when it's open. So I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, I would, man. I'm trying to find a way to not diss the Commanders when I answer this question, but I'm going to have to answer it anyway. The
No, but
reason why,
he asked about the Redskins. He did
yeah.
not ask about the
So
Commanders.
let's talk about the Redskins real quick. Um, you look at the different stages that the two organizations are in right now, the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commander Redskin football team. The the Commanders would be completely okay with Dan Quinn coming in and coaching their defense to, 3 consecutive 12-5 seasons. If the Commanders
Oh
were
yeah.
able to do that, that literally skyrockets their organization, in a
Mhm.
positive manner, right? They're the only team left in the NFC besides us that haven't made the NFC championship game. Like, they're the last two teams that haven't made it since, the longest time, right? So they're really struggling right now, right? The Cowboys are okay with they're fine with the job that Dan Quinn has done, but we have to succeed at a higher level than what Dan Quinn has got us to this point. Our expectations and the ability of this organization and the team, is much higher. The ceiling is much higher than where we ended this year. We should have been in the NFC Championship game this year. No question about it. If you look at this team, there's different expectations for the team that you have. For the Cowboys, losing in the playoff, like the super wild card round, is completely unacceptable for this organization. Whereas the Commanders, they're trying to get their team just to win, to have a winning season right now. They're just trying to get in the playoffs. So when you look at it in those two lenses, Dan Quinn is a great choice because he's had a lot of success winning, having winning teams and getting into the playoffs. That's where
Yeah.
Washington's trying to go. If they can get to the point where they have consecutive winning seasons and get into the playoffs and lose, well, then you can move on from Dan Quinn because then he can't win in the playoffs. But just to be able to lose in the playoffs would be in a positive direction for the Commanders right now. So that's why the Cowboys are okay with it, because we are at different points in our organizations right now. And that could change, but as of right now, the Cowboys are here and the Commanders are down here. And that's just the way it is. So you have a guy that can get you into the playoffs, but can't win big games, but can get you 12 wins in the regular season. The Commanders are taking that all day. That's not acceptable for the Dallas Cowboys. That's just the way it is. So that's why the Cowboys are okay with that move. There's my answer. All right.
Absolutely.
Our last question here from Jason HHI. Why do fans overrate their coaches?
Well, I think I thought about it, and I think Jason, what he's asking is, fans make too big of a deal about gaining or losing a coach when the players on the field are the ones deciding the game. And I think that's where he's going with the question. And, you can agree with that to some point, but time and time again, you see a team change a coach and it's the same quarterback, the same receivers, the same stars on defense, and that coaching change all of a sudden skyrockets that team, and they're in the playoffs and they're winning and going on. You look at just guys like Andy Reid. Wherever they go, they win,
Hmm.
and there's something to it. So I think coaches are very, very important, but I know exactly what Jason means, and yeah, it's hard to argue, man. The players on the field do your job. If you do your job, you win the game. If everybody does a job, they win the game. The coaches can't go out there and play for you. So there's a lot
Right.
of truth to that, but the proof is in the pudding, and we see time and time again, coaches go somewhere and they win. There's something about that. You got to say they're important. Certain guys know how to win.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that. I think maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say without being on the field and knowing, but just coming from a sports background, um, specifically talking about the Cowboys here, I was disappointed with the overall play of the Cowboys regardless of the coaching for that game. Like in the playoff game against the Packers. I'm really disappointed in both, but at the end of the day, um this is how the NFL works. This is how kind of life works in general. When something terrible happens, and in this case it was a football game, it was a really embarrassing loss. Like, your leaders get held accountable, right? So at the end of the day, the shit trickles upwards, as you can say. It doesn't trickle downwards. When there's really bad shit that happens, it trickles upwards. And for the NFL, that's coaching. So when something like this happens, where there's this huge debacle at the end of a successful season that the Cowboys had, the coaches are going to be the ones that are being looked at the end of the day, because their job is to prepare the team to go out and win the game. They're supposed to tell the guys exactly what they're supposed to do to win the game. There's not these NFL players, these football players, these pro athletes are so hardwired to a certain way. They have so much going on in that moment where they have to trust the coaches to tell them the right thing to do. If you do this, you are going to win the game. I just need you to do your job at a 110% level, right? You just do your job the best you possibly can, and we will win this game. Well, Dan Quinn told his defense, do your job, and we will win this game. And at least at the start of the game, they did their job, and it was a complete mess. And the coaching staff, Dan Quinn, changed the identity of the Dallas Cowboys for this playoff game. He changed everything, right? So I think at the end of the day, you have to blame the coaches for those mistakes. Um, but yeah, it's interesting at the end of the day. Like, you would think these guys are such professionals. They've been playing the sport for so long. Like, they could overlook some of the coaching mistakes, but at the end of the day, they follow what the coaches say. They follow the plays that the coaches call. And if you don't have success, the coach is the number one person on the chopping block. And for the foreseeable future, that's going to be the way it is. So yeah, that's a good question, Jason HHI. Appreciate it. But yeah, I just think that's how it works right now. It's an interesting. You make a good point though. All right, so thanks for getting your questions in on Twitter or X. I'm sorry. We'll drop something again as a reminder next week, but you could tweet us throughout the week, and we'll respond to your questions. So Cowboy Reg, let's finish this show off today. Um, so our first game of the championship weekend was the Chiefs and Baltimore game. The Chiefs end up taking the win 17-10. What happened?
You missed a question on Twitter. I know our buddy Mark at he had a good question about Jerry Jones.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh yeah. I
I don't
think you
see it.
called it too early. Oh yeah. Oh, our buddy Mark had a good question. I'm telling you. Okay, I got it right here.
I
We'll
don't
call
see it.
this up. We got to give everybody their shout out. Here we go. Marco, how would the Cowboys' future look if they had an in place general manager? Wow, that's a good question. How would we look if we had so is he directly well, you probably don't follow Mark, so you can't see his question. That's probably what it is. You got to follow him, I think. But I think
Okay.
he's asking about
Right.
Jerry. He's asking about Jerry, don't you think? How would we
Yeah.
look with a general manager? So Mark is saying, what do we think of Jerry? What if we had somebody in there instead of Jerry? What do you say, Dallas?
I think if you had any other general manager with the track record that Jerry Jones has had since 1996, they would have been fired years and years ago. I think it's as simple as that. Um, no general manager is getting away with what has happened with the last, what are we on, 38 years now? Um,
No, 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 no. 29 years.
what
29 years.
I'm a big math guy, but yeah, it seemed like forever ago. So 38 years, man.
Well, that's
Um,
your whole life. Yeah, that's
it's my
forever
whole
ago.
life. I guess I think I'm older than I am. But yeah, if you look at the success rate of the last 29 years for any general manager, they would not still have
Yeah.
a job with that team. So I
Well,
think
I
it's as
mean,
simple as that.
look at Belichick. I mean, the guy. Correct me if I'm wrong. 6 Super Bowls.
Hmm.
So you win 6 Super Bowls, and then you lose your starting quarterback, and then they start drafting new guys to rebuild, and he gets fired. So no one is safe from getting fired. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. You're absolutely right. Jerry would not have a job at any of the other 31 teams for his record in the last 29 years. Mark is correct. That's a good question. The only thing that I would say is let's all remember Jerry owns the team.
Yeah,
So if you don't like the way Jerry does things, you got 31 other teams to cheer for. Jerry owns a team. He calls the shots. No one can say fire Jerry. Jerry is not going to fire himself. He's going to retire at some point. I don't know if God forbid that point
yeah.
is death, but that might be it.
I was gonna
We're
say I don't
stuck
know.
with we're stuck with Jerry, and
The
Jerry
good
looks pretty
Lord
damn
might.
good for he looks good for his age, so we might be stuck with him for a while. But I wish he would retire on his own, and
Yeah,
we can all look at him in the box. They'd flash over to him in the box. We'd all smile. There's Jerry. But he ain't gonna retire. So look, there's no use even worrying about who would do. I mean, there's plenty of guys that we could say would do a better job, but it's not realistic to even speak about because Jerry owns a team and he's not going to change. He's going to keep doing it. Now, here's the scenario where he retires if they win the Super Bowl. I think Jerry would retire. He needs one more. He needs it. In his
yeah,
mind, he needs it because he knows he's being criticized. He needs to prove everybody wrong, and that'll do it. Win one more, show everybody, and then right off in the sunset, retire. That's his dream scenario. Man, I wish that would happen, but I'm not overly confident. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
yeah. Hope you're right. Thanks for the questions, Marco. Sorry I missed you. I didn't see it on X, but I'm gonna give you a follow so I don't miss your questions in the future. Um, yeah. So back to the or the AFC Championship game. So the Chiefs defeated the Baltimore Ravens, the team
Your Baltimore Ravens.
that
Your
was
Ravens.
bandwagoning, and I placed a future on, and I would have won a decent amount of change. But hey, that's neither here or there. So before we get going here, I want to talk about something that I mentioned last week. Guess who won the turnover battle in this game, Cowboy Regg?
Most Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs, and they win 17-0. More specifically, much like our beloved CD Lamb did in that first Detroit Lions game, we had a fumble into the end zone um, by Zay
Yeah, that was
Flowers.
tough.
So the Chiefs beat the Ravens 17-10 in Baltimore. Your thoughts, other than champs are the champs until they're dethroned?
Like I said last week, when the Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions until further notice. Don't pick against them. Don't make that mistake. They got the best coach in the league in Andy Reid. They got the best quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Oh, it pains me to say it, but if I'm going up in the big game, who would I rather have under center than who's in the league right now? I'm picking Patrick Mahomes, and he does it time and time again. Don't tell me about the second half. They didn't score any points in the second. They ran the clock. They got the first downs when they needed it, and they just ran clock and they won the game. They're going to the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter how many points they scored in the second half. He did that before. He'll do it again. He knows how to win the game. So
Yeah.
the Chiefs, baby. I knew they could do it, and they did it. It wasn't easy, but boy, I tell you what, that quarterback over in Baltimore has a little too much of a similarity to our quarterback when it comes to winning those games. And they're both stuck at 2 wins in the playoffs. That's tough to see. MVPs, like they got two of the 3 or 4 guys left in the MVP race, and they have losing records in the playoffs. That's tough to see. It's tough.
Yeah, I thought Lamar could go out and play better. Obviously, you look back at, man, it felt like, much like Dak has done in the past, like they hear all this stuff around their name saying this guy can't do this, he can't do that. And for Lamar, the biggest thing with him, we all know that he's a fantastic runner, the best running quarterback in the NFL, hands down, the best running quarterback we've had since Michael Vick in the NFL. Um, and they said he could just run, he can't do anything else. So what does Lamar do in this big game? He sticks in the pocket and tries to become a passer. He changes who he is, just like the Cowboys did against Green Bay. You change who you are. Do what got you there. You are in the AFC Championship game. Be yourself. Do what got you there. Lamar
Hey,
did not
boys,
run. He did not run. He
you remember always dance with your date.
Oh, okay.
You
I
don't go
like that.
dance with other girls. You dance with your date. You
Okay.
did this to get into the big game. You keep doing it.
I like that. Wise words from a decent man, Cowboy Reg. Yeah, Lamar went eight carries for 54 yards. It's unacceptable. He had so much time in the pocket. He just sat there and he tried to throw. He overthrew so many guys. He went 20 for 37 in passing, 20 for 37. Almost, so that's what, high 50 percentage. He
Zach
tried to,
Wilson numbers. Those are Zach Wilson numbers.
yeah, it's not good. One touchdown, one interception, 20 for 37, 272 yards. The reason why Patrick Mahomes is so great is, like, guys like Mahomes, it's Brady like in a sense. It's you become the quarterback you need to be to win the game. He didn't need to light up the scoreboard to win the game. He went 30 for 39, 241, one touchdown, made absolutely no mistakes, not even close to any mistakes, never even came close to turning the ball over, just stayed efficient, and
Exactly.
he showed up when he
Yep.
needed to. He made that last pass on that third down conversion to win the
Yeah.
game. And all of a sudden, Travis Kelsey is the best tight end in the league again. But yeah, it was a tough game. I don't know why Lamar gets a pass for his 2-4 record in the playoffs, where Dak is 2-5, and everyone says get rid of Dak, and everyone defends Lamar. I don't understand it. if you had a gun to my head and you asked me who I want as my quarterback, Lamar Jackson or Dak Prescott, I'm taking Dak Prescott at this point because Lamar has shown that he's really a one-trick pony, and I like the guy. Like I really think he could get it done this year. I thought things changed, but they did not change. The guy cannot pass, right? Do I think Dak should run more? Yes. He needs to run more next year. 100%. If they expect to win and get to the Super Bowl next year, he has to become a rusher like he always has been his entire life. But there's no if you're a quarterback that doesn't pass the ball well, there's really no getting over that. Whereas I think Dak is a competent. He's not the best passer in the league, the best thrower, but he's a hell of a lot better than Lamar. I'll tell you that right now. And if you want to argue with me about who's a better passer, like please bring that smoke because I will argue that to my deathbed. Like Dak
You
Prescott is
turn, you'll
such
turn, you'll turn stat boy on him real quick, boy. I tell you, just pull out the stats.
he is such a better passer than Lamar, but Lamar could have got this done by running. He tried to be something he's not, and that failed him. So next year, Lamar, if you want to win, you just got to run. You run, 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 run constantly. Do not stick in the pocket. You are not a passer. You are a good enough passer to potentially win a Super Bowl, I think. But like, dude, do not change who you are. Dance with your date. Good call, Cowboy Reg. But a frustrating
Yeah,
loss
buddy.
for the Baltimore Ravens. They had a great team this year. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton. He played a hell of a freaking game. That guy was everywhere. Notre Dame fans out there, Kyle
Yeah.
Hamilton, the GOAT.
Yeah. What
All
about
right.
no, go ahead. We had another Irish linebacker playing this weekend.
Drew Tranquil plays for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Drew
played a great
Tranquil.
game
So
too. Yeah.
yeah. And he's going to the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
let's
good for
hope.
him.
Well, we will talk about that next week. We'll see. Hope he plays well. We won't make any picks. Hope he plays well.
All right, so oof. Oh man. San Francisco is going to the Super Bowl as well. They beat the Detroit Lions 34-31. Oh boy. What you got, Cowboy Reg?
We called it 3 weeks ago. We sat right here on this podcast, and I said the words Dan Campbell, ha ha, more like Dan Gamble. And you said, wouldn't it be funny if this guy cost his team a playoff win because of his boneheaded, overconfident, high risk calls? So he said, look, hold my beer, Dallas. Let me go into San Fran and blow the game. You think giving up 3 points is bad? Let me give up six. How do you like me now? Let's lose by three. Do the math. Dan Gamble, why is he getting a pass? Why has he
I
got
don't
a
know.
job? He cost his team a Super Bowl, the only Super Bowl they would ever have gone to in the history of their franchise. And then he gets on the mic and starts talking about this could be our only shot. We don't know. This could be the only time we ever get here. What is
It's
he
true.
talking about? This
Yeah, I
guy's
mean,
crazy. This guy's
yeah.
got hit in the head one too many times, man. Do not hire tight ends as your head coach. I don't know what's wrong with him. Something's wrong with that guy. Dan Gamble, you blew it, man. Kick the field goal.
Uh, I know. I
Go
was
go for the extra point. If you would have kicked the extra point, you would have beat Dallas and you'd have been playing San Fran in Detroit. How about that? But you didn't.
it's fair.
Well, I don't know. They might not have had the tiebreaker anyways.
Right,
I don't
right,
know.
right. Well, if you look at their records, if they were 13-4 and San Fran was 12-5, but
There it
yeah,
is. Yeah, there it
yeah,
is.
yeah. But man, that that was malpractice what Dan Campbell did to that team. Absolute malpractice. If there was a license for being an NFL coach, if you had to pass some kind of certification or take some test, or if you had to go up to a board and renew your certification, he would be banned from the NFL for what he did to that team. I think it's a joke. I think it's absurd. I think it's asinine what he did. Um, I respect the hell out of him for what he's done with that organization, but you do something like that and it's inexcusable. I mean,
You're
again,
talking about a guy who went for a 2 point conversion
three times.
and got a 15-yard penalty. He got a 15-yard penalty, moved the ball back, and goes for a 2-point conversion again. And he gets a pass because, oh, well, the referee called the wrong guy eligible. The announcer called this guy eligible. They have sent 2 guys, 3 guys to the, we could go over that all day. But when they moved him back 15 yards, he kicked the ball going to overtime. They probably would, they had the momentum. I mean, come on, they probably win that game. We hate to look at it that way, but looking back
Yeah.
on it, they probably win the game.
No,
He
I
cost
agree.
him that game. He cost him the possible number 1 seed. That's a what if, but he cost them their trip to the Super Bowl. Don't bring that. I don't want to ever see that guy on the sideline for my team. I'm done with
No,
that guy.
no, no,
I'm
God,
done.
no.
No,
They're in
no.
a bad spot there because he got away. He got to the NFC Championship
He
this
might
year
be
doing,
coach of the year. I see he's one of the top 4
yeah.
candidates for coach of the year. In coach of the year, the guy can't. He
Let him
doesn't
be.
know
I
3 plus
I
3
hope
is
he is.
6. I mean, you lose by 3, but 3 plus 3 is 6. You just gave those points away. And one of them they gave up a easy 3, turn the ball over and give up 7. It's a 10-point swing. I mean, cost his team the game over and over again. And unbelievable.
I
Thank
hope
God
they
I'm
did.
not a
I hope he
Detroit
does.
fan.
I hope he does. I mean,
Yeah.
a- as you know, Detroit was a good story this year, but looking forward, they're a NFC, you know, stepping stone to get to win the NFC next year. You're going to have to beat Detroit. I love the way that looks right now with the way Dan Campbell is coaching his football team, and this is why. If he gets the guy has proven that he has to go all the way, or he second guessed himself at the end of the first half, and then he doesn't kick or he
Yeah, he's
decide.
on the what is he on the 2-yard line? 2-yard line at
Yeah,
the end of the first half, and he kicks a field goal.
yeah,
And then when he's in field goal range in the fourth quarter, he's going for it. Those two things don't go together. So you're
he,
second guessing yourself. You're absolutely right. The guy out coached himself. I don't ever want to see him on the Dallas sideline. Ever. You can keep him, Detroit. Keep him. The Packers are laughing. The Vikings are laughing.
yeah,
The Bears, they might be laughing. They're laughing at themselves. I won't even put them in the conversation.
yeah.
But yeah, man,
This is what makes
I
it
would
hard
think
for.
they've lost all confidence in him, I would think.
Well, here's the issue for Detroit because you're gonna you're gonna run into this problem. Dan Campbell next year has to look at, okay, I got my team to the NFC Championship game doing this, but then I made these mistakes at the end of that game. So do I play more conservative, but my style and the whole buy-in from my team is like we're going to be aggressive all the time. We're going to go we're going to go balls to the wall. We're going to go for it on every fourth down. There has to be a balance there. He's never showed that he can have any type of balance. So next year I foresee him being way more conservative, and they're not going to
Yeah.
have the overall success they've had during the year because they've been ultra aggressive, and I think he's got to take it all the way back. What they're going to say after the end of this year is, yeah, he was a little too aggressive, but hey, we're the Detroit Lions who made it to the NFC championship game. It's the franchise is in a positive direction. Just dial it back a little bit, Dan Campbell. Dial it back, and he's gonna next year they're gonna play differently. They're gonna be more conservative, and they're not going to win the games that they were able to win this year, those close games, because everyone knows it next year. They're going to play for him being aggressive. You're not going to be able to get away with the fluky bullshit you got away with this year. You're not going to be able to get away with fake punts, going for it on all these fourth downs. Like I remember that
Yeah, the
Cowboys game.
Niners, the Niners left their starting defense on the field during one of the punts. It was like a 4th and 6, and they just let them know, like, go. I mean, you're either going to kick the ball inside the 20, and we don't care if anybody's back there to return it, but
Right.
we're not going to let you run your fake punt. You're not getting a first down here. And Detroit punted. They had no choice but to punt. And I thought, and you're absolutely right. This is what teams are going to do. They're going to say, look, you're not going to run a fake field goal or a fake punt on us. We're going to prepare for that. Go ahead and kick the field goal. Go ahead and punt the ball. But we're not going to let you run the fake. Yeah, and then he's gonna second guess himself on when he should go for 2 or 1. He's gonna second guess himself on 4th and short. I don't know. Good luck sorting that out.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
be
know.
tough.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's be
I don't
tough.
know.
But, shout out to Detroit. You had a good year. We were all rooting for you, but yeah, the Lions is the Lions. That's just tough. Um, I think that's all for this week. Cowboy Reg, you got anything left in the tank?
I love the fact that you didn't even mention the Niners, the team that won the game. I
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that. I think we should let's just leave that unsaid because, they're the
I'm
Niners.
just I don't want to get too into it and we can talk about it in the offseason, but I think this NFC is so ridiculously winnable. I just don't even want to talk about it because it makes me sick as a Cowboys fan. I mean,
That's
these
why
teams,
we're going that's why we're going all in, baby.
yeah.
All in.
And if you think it's winnable this year, it's 10 times more winnable next year. Like I said, all offseason to talk about that, but it's sickening. This Niners team is nothing special. I mean, they should have lost to the Detroit Lions at home. This is the NFC favorite is trailing the Detroit Lions 24-7 at halftime. Give me a freaking break, San Fran. You're going to get your freaking doors blown off by the Chiefs. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke that the Cowboys are not in this game. We should dummy the Niners. Brock Purdy's a joke. You're a one-trick pony with
You
McCaffrey.
know, you
I
wanna
just
talk
I
about
don't want to talk.
you
You
want
got me fired up,
you wanna
Cowboy
talk
Reg.
about we wanna talk about Dan Quinn. Let's talk about Dan Quinn. The Detroit Lions are up 24-7 at halftime. The Green Bay Packers were up 27-7 at halftime. What's the difference? The difference is the Niners defense stopped Detroit completely in the second half, and
Right,
they did what they had to do. If you give us 32 points in the second half to their 27, we win the playoff game. Dan Quinn never stopped that offense. They kept scoring, they kept scoring, they kept scoring. That's the difference between the way the Niners played and the way the Cowboys played. And that is 100% pointing in the direction of Dan Quinn. Unfortunately, like you said earlier, and like Jason pointed out in his question, the coaches get too much credit. They also get too much blame, like you said. So Dan Quinn
right.
has to go because of that. And that
Yeah.
game was a perfect example. I tweeted during the game, I said, this is eerily similar to the Cowboys Packers. It looked like the same game. It's like I'm watching the same game. They score, they score, they score, and you're like, I can't believe they keep scoring. And the Niners did nothing. They got a measly 7 points, exactly what the Cowboys did. There's one difference. The Niners showed up in the second half with their defense and their offense. We only showed up in the second half with our offense.
Right.
I'm not even going to give them too much credit because they're scoring, but so is Green Bay. So it kind of a blowout until late in the fourth quarter, and it still ended up kind of a blowout. But they're very similar games. If you look at the way it went
Oh,
in the first half,
100%.
it's exactly the same. In the second half, they showed up. So what causes that? Coaches cause that. They have to. There's
Yeah,
no
you're
other
100% right.
explanation.
At halftime adjustments, talks in the locker room, those things matter. And yeah, okay, so I will give credit to San Francisco. Shout out to San Francisco for coming back. Congratulations on winning that game. I'm super impressed. Um, that's all I got left in the tank. Cowboy Reg. Um, I'm optimistic about the Cowboys' future at this point. Hopefully, we have some good news on defensive coordinator. Hopefully, this offseason is going all in, putting all our chips on the table, and letting us, take our
If
our
if
very
Jerry
best
knows
shot.
what all in is, we don't know. Did Jerry know what all in is? What are these chips, Jerry? So what are these chips? Doritos? Frito Lay? I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the Cowboys, but hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have our coaching situation figured out and we can start talking about the future of this Cowboys roster, right? And we'll dive into that and we'll give you our Super Bowl predictions next week. And we'll talk about the Pro Bowl, right? The Pro Bowl is going on this weekend. I mean, I don't really care about
The
it, but
dodgeball
somebody
game.
might.
The
Dodgeball.
dodgeball game.
So we'll talk about
You
we'll touch
get
on that
they
a little
get
bit.
you better you saw me on Twitter all week defending Dak. You got fans yelling at him for not going to the Pro Bowl. You mad at Dak for
What
not
a
going to
joke.
the dodgeball
What a
game when he
joke.
has his daughter's being born and you want him
Yeah.
to go to a dodgeball game? Look, the Pro Bowl game is not what it used to be. They should. I
No,
mean, we could get it. We can do an whole episode on that. They shouldn't even have the stupid thing because they're not
no,
playing football. So what's the point?
it's stupid,
Dak doesn't need a dodgeball game. Come
and
on
it's
now.
in Orlando. Like, what a dump. Anyway, um, yeah, we got a lot to talk about next week. Hopefully, we get some clarity on the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. We have a look at what this coaching staff is going to look like. We really hope to move on from the coaching staff and let's start to get into the nitty gritty about what the Dallas Cowboys roster is going to look like in 2024, 2025. Again, I'm your host, Dallas. Joining me as always, Cowboy Regg. Give us a follow on Twitter at Sons of Star Pod at Cowboys Reg. It's right there on the banner below. Hit up Cowboy Reg or Sons of Star Pod on X for any questions you have or you want us to talk about on next week's episode. We appreciate you listening week in and week out. This is your favorite father and son duo of Cowboys fans. I'm your host, Dallas. Cowboy Reg. Have a good night. Go Cowboys.